Hello students, how are you all? Are you all fine there? Very good. Be happy and be healthy always. Okay. Okay, my dear children, in the last class, we discussed a story. We just have started the story. And do you remember it? Do you remember the story? What was that? What was the title of the story? Yes. Little World of Mud. Okay. Then who wrote it? Who was the author? Who was the writer? Yes, Ruskin Bond. And I had given a homework. Do you all finish your homework? What was that? Did you fill that column? Yes? Okay, very good. And did you read the chapter 2 times? I had told you to read the chapter 2 times. Did you read it? Yes, very good. Okay, now then I am going to ask you some question to check your understanding level. I am going to ask you some questions, few questions. Are you all ready to answer me? Very good. Okay, my dear children, then tell me, who is the I? Who is that boy in that story? Who the I refers? Yes, it is the writer himself. The boy in the story is Ruskin Bond. Okay, very good. And we know that the boy had visited the pond many times. Okay, and he couldn't see anything except water buffaloes and some quantity of mud. Then who showed him the pond's world? Who showed him the pond's world? Yes, it was his grandfather who showed him the diversity of the pond. The grandfather helped him to see, to understand the diversity of the pond. Okay, then when they went to the pond, where did they sit? Where did they sit? They sat, yes, they sat under the peepal tree. What is peepal tree? It is a kind of banyan tree. Okay, yes, very good. And after 10 minutes, they could see one thing. What was that? They could see one thing after 10 minutes. What was that? It was, they could see a black spot, right? They could see a black spot and it was the head of a small frog. Do you remember it all? Yes. Then, who is a heron? Who is a heron? A heron is a bird. Yes. Say, all of you say. A heron is a bird. It's a bird with large neck. Means it's a large bird with long neck and long legs. You may have seen this type of birds. You may have seen herons in the field. Okay. And give me some another word for heron. Yes. Stork and crane. Okay, my dear children, now we move on to the next part of the story. All of you take page number 17. Now we move on to the third paragraph of the story in page number 17. Okay. So, my dear children, now we move on to the paragraph. I am going to read the chapter. You all of you please listen and go through the lines. Okay. When Mr. Frog had made sure that we were not herons, he passed this information on to his friends, and very soon there were a number of big heads and eyes on the surface of the water. We heard a music that went walk, walk, walk. Okay, so we know that when this boy and his grandfather reached in that pond, after 10 minutes they could see a black spot on the surface of the water. It was a small frog. It was the head of a small frog. Okay, that small frog was watching them, if they were its enemy or not. There might be some enemies like heron. Maybe it is waiting to get the small little frogs. So he was searching, he was observing them. Then he realized that they were not his enemies, and that little frog passed that information to his friends. That time what happened, a number of frog came, and number of soon there were a number of big heads and eyes on the surface of the water. They could see a number of frogs heads on the surface of the water, means above the water they could see the number of heads. Okay, and we heard a music that went wook wook. They could hear a music also. There were that frogs were making a sound. It was like wook wook wook. Okay, so they could hear the music. They could hear that sound also when all the frogs came. Then in the shallow water we could see dark shadow. When I touched it with a stick, thousands of little black tadpoles started moving and pushing each other. So, in the shallow water means not that much deep. Okay, so in that shallow water, they could see a dark shadow. Who could see that? That boy saw a dark shadow. What is shadow? You know what is shadow? Okay, the shade. Okay, so he could see the shadow, a black shadow on the shallow water, and he took a stick. And he touched the water with that stick. What happened? There were thousands of little black tadpoles. Who is a tadpole, Tadpole is a small water creatures that grow into frogs. Tadpoles are immature. The small frogs, little frogs, or immature frogs, and it has a long tail. A tadpole has a long tail and a long head, and that lives in the water. That is the immature frogs, and it grow into big frogs after. Okay, so they could see when the boy took a stick and he touched the water with that stick, he could see thousands of tadpoles that were moving here and there, that started moving. Okay, so my dear children, now we move on to the next page. All of you take next page, page number 18. What do tadpoles eat? I asked. They eat one another most of the time, said grandfather. Grandfather, it seems unpleasant, but if all the young tadpoles in the pond grew into frogs, then every inch of the ground would be full of frogs. So this little boy asked to his, when he saw the tadpoles in the pond, he became surprised. He got surprised and he excited. Then he asked to the grandfather that, what do a tadpole eat? What we eat? What do we eat? We eat food. Different types of food. We eat fish, we eat rice, we eat vegetable. Okay, like that he asked to the grandfather that, what a tadpole eat? Then what was the answer of grandfather? He said, they eat one another most of the time. Means a tadpole is eating another one. A tadpole is eating another tadpole. Okay. And grandfather, it seems unpleasant, but if all the young tadpoles in this pond grow into frogs, then every inch of the ground would be full of frogs. Then the boy is saying that there were many tadpoles, means thousands of tadpoles were there. Then when it became big frogs, when they grew into big frogs, what would happen? There will be full of frogs in that pond. Okay, the boy is saying this to his grandfather. I brought home a number of frogs and put them in a glass jar and left them on a windowsill. I didn't tell anyone of this. At about 4 in the morning, the entire household was awakened by a loud and fearful noise. Grandmother and other members of the family ran out. Then my grandmother saw them. She was angry and she wanted them thrown out of the window, but grandfather stopped her. He gave the bottle a good shaking and that quietened them for some time. What is the meaning of this paragraph? This boy, he became surprised by seeing this type of frogs and tadpoles in the pond, and he has taken some frogs from the pond and he put that into a jar. He put the frogs into a bottle, and he went to his home and he kept the bottle on the windowsill. Okay, then, and he didn't tell this to anyone. He kept this as a secret matter. He didn't tell that to anyone, and it was night when it was in the early morning. It was around 4 o'clock. The entire family woke up. They awakened, means they woke up by hearing a fearful noise. There was a big noise, very big noise. What was the noise about, Yes, we are going to see that. And all the members woke up and they ran out because it was a terrible noise, a fearful noise. They ran out, and their grandfather and other members, all of them came out of the rooms, and grandmother saw them. There was a jar on the windowsill, and that bottle was full of little frogs. Okay, full of frogs. The grandma, when seeing this, grandmother got angry. She got angry and she took the bottle and she was about to throw the bottle out. That time grandfather came and grandfather told her, don't do. Grandfather came and stopped her. Okay, then he gave the bottle a little shake. He took the bottle in his hand and he shake it well. That time the sound quietened. The sound quietened means calm or silent. Then the sound became silent. Okay. So now we move on to the next paragraph. The next day, one of my aunt took the cover of the bottle to see what was inside. The sight of frogs frightened her so much that she ran off without replacing the cover. The frogs jumped out and got loose in the garden. They were never seen again. So on the next day, his auntie, one of his hand, Ruskin Bond's auntie, took the bottle. She was curious about to know what is inside the bottle. She was curious to know. She wanted to know what is inside the bottle. So one of his aunt took the bottle. She took the bottle. She opened it, and when she saw full of frogs inside the bottle, she became afraid. And she ran out. Okay, she ran out from there. And she forgot to replacing the cover, the top of that bottle. She didn't cover it. Okay, and because she was afraid by seeing these frogs in that bottle, she ran out without replacing the cover. That time what happened? All the frogs came out. Okay, all the frogs came out and it jumped and all the frogs went to the garden. There was a garden. All the gems jumped. It went to the garden. They were never seen again. And the little boy, he couldn't see that frogs never again. So my dear children, we wind up our today's class here, but I won't give you a work to do, a homework. It is a very interesting one. Are you all ready to do that? Okay, very good. Then all of you look at page number 18. Page number 18. Can you see there a picture? Can you see there a picture? Can you see the picture of grandfather, grandmother and the little boy? Yes, very good. Then what is your question, you know? What would be the dialogue between grandfather and grandmother at that time? We can see that grandmother is very angry. See her face? She is very much angry. And the boy is afraid. And grandfather is also, he is also in some kind of confusion. Some kind of confusion is there in his face also. So what would be the conversation? Means what would be the dialogues between the grandfather and the grandmother? Let's write it. Okay, all of you please write and read the chapter again 2 times. We will continue in the next class. Till then, bye.